Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The rain in the suburbs of Detroit that night fell heavily, like an iron curtain. Water lashed against the windshield of Amara Torres's beat-up old Honda, making the wipers squeak like a groan. The dashboard clock ticked past 12:47 a.m. The gas station parking lot was deserted. The last employee had just locked the door and sped off, leaving only the flickering green neon light against the storm. Amara turned the key for the umpteenth time. The engine roared, sputtered, then died. "No, don't do this," she whispered, pressing her forehead against the steering wheel, sobbing. The pressure inside her felt as crushing as the downpour outside. Losing her job, rent 3 weeks overdue, and medical bills stacked high. Her 6-year-old sister, Lila, was burning with fever at home. All alone, she bit her lip, wondering how she would make it through tomorrow. And now, the car breaking down in the middle of a storm, her despair hit its limit. She opened her contacts. Jasper, the ex-boyfriend who had moved to Chicago to chase his career. He once told her, "If you ever really need me, just call." Tonight, she needed him. Her trembling finger dialed the number. The phone rang. "Police here. Report your situation." A deep, firm, yet oddly playful male voice came through. Amara froze, glancing at her screen. Oh no, she had misdialed. The last digit of Jasper's number was a 4, but she had pressed 7. "Sorry, wrong number," she stammered quickly, swallowing tears. "I'll hang up." "Wait." The voice on the other end dropped lower, gentle but resolute. "Are you okay?" Doesn't sound like someone who just misdialed. She stiffened. Did he just call me baby? The way he spoke was far too natural. I'm fine." The car broke down at the gas station lot. "I'm fine. Fine. Yet you sound like you're crying." The stranger paused, then added, half serious, half joking. "You sure you don't need police assistance?" The unexpected joke made Amara burst into a choked laugh, half broken, half amused. She couldn't even remember the last time she had laughed. "God, who are you?" "Ezra," he replied simply. "And you, Amara?" "All right, Amara. Now, listen to me. Lock your doors again. Turn on the cabin light, and don't open that door for anyone you don't know." "Where exactly are you?" Amara stayed silent, her grip on her phone tightening. A stranger in the middle of the night. No matter how warm his voice sounded, what if this was a trap? As if reading her mind, Ezra continued, calm but decisive. "Amara, if you're afraid I'm tricking you, share your location with someone you trust. Better yet, give them my number, too. If anything happens, they'll have my information first." He paused, then added with a touch of dry humor, "Honestly, if I had bad intentions, leaving my personal file like this would be pretty stupid, don't you think?" That last line made Amara laugh softly, her fear easing a little. He wasn't hiding anything. On the contrary, he was encouraging her to be cautious. That was exactly why she wanted to believe him. She hesitated, a stranger at night. But his voice carried a conviction that he wasn't out to take advantage of her. She looked around and spotted the flashing Oak Street sign. "Oak Street lot. The store just closed. I know that place. Dangerous to sit there alone right now." Ezra's tone sharpened. "I'll call an Uber for you. A black sedan driven by Felix. I'll send you the plate number. Only get in if it matches." Her phone chimed. A message arrived with the license plate photo. Amara squinted, heart racing. He was too prepared. If he meant her harm, why would he be so transparent? "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You don't even know me." "Because the sound of your voice tells me you're too alone right now," Ezra answered simply. "Sometimes a stranger can do what the people you know can't." Silence lingered for a few seconds. Rain hammered on the roof like war drums. Amara's eyes blurred with fresh tears. Part of her mind warned, "Don't trust him." But another part whispered, "He gave proof. He's still on the line, and he hasn't asked for anything." In her desperation, this was the only lifeline she had. "Okay," she whispered, "but don't hang up until I'm home." "Of course," Ezra chuckled lightly. "You'll have to listen to me ramble nonsense the whole ride." "Like what?" "Like why I drink hot cocoa instead of espresso," he said evenly. "Even though I'm a CEO, my niece swears cocoa helps you sleep better." There you go. National secret exposed. Amara let out a real laugh, freer this time. "Strange. 5 minutes ago, she was drowning in despair. Now she was bantering with a stranger. Headlights swept across the lot. A black sedan pulled up in front of her, blinkers flashing twice. Another chime. Car has arrived. Plate number D3L492. Driver Felix. A middle-aged man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He held up his phone to show her his screen. Ms. Amara, I'm Felix. Hot cocoa, right? Amara exhaled in relief. Smiling faintly, the password was correct. Keeping the phone to her ear, she whispered, I see it. Plate matches. Password matches. I'm getting in. I'm here, Ezra reminded. Tell me when you're inside your house. Amara opened the door, dashed through the rain. Clutching her backpack, Felix opened the rear door, helped her in, then returned to the driver's seat. The door shut. The lock clicked. The car rolled forward. I'm safe now, she said softly into the phone. Good, Ezra exhaled. His voice sounding like a weight had lifted from his chest. I'll stay on the line until you lock your front door. Outside the window, Detroit blurred in sheets of rain, but inside Amara's heart, a small warm light flickered. One wrong call, one unfamiliar voice, but it had become her lifeline in the darkest night. She smiled, leaning back against the seat, whispering, Thank you, Officer 1080. On the other end, Ezra laughed, and somewhere else in the city, a man she had never met before stood by his high-rise office window, smiling for the first time in many long, bleak months. The Detroit night was still gray and stormy, but somewhere within it, two strangers had just been bound by a very real thread. The next morning, pale sunlight slipped through the worn-out blinds, spilling onto the damp living room floor. Amara stirred awake on the sofa, her neck aching from sleeping curled up. On the table nearby, Lila was still fast asleep, her breathing raspy, but her fever lower than the night before. Just as Amara set down a reheated bowl of soup, her phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Him, the man from the wrong call. Amara hesitated. Part of her wanted to ignore it. He was just a stranger, but her finger moved on its own and pressed the accept button. Hello. Good morning, Amara. His warm, steady voice drifted through like a note gliding past her exhaustion. I just wanted to make sure you got home safe last night. Amara froze for a moment. The concern of a stranger made her heart skip a beat, but she kept her guard up. I made it. Everything's fine. You didn't have to call. I know I didn't, but I wanted to. Ezra's reply was calm, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Besides, you still owe me a cup of hot cocoa. Amara laughed a small laugh, the first in days after nothing but sighs. In the days that followed, the wrong call didn't end. On Monday night, the phone buzzed again. Amara stared at the screen, hesitated, then answered. What are you doing? Ezra's voice carried that low rasp of a man at the end of a long day. Checking Lila's prescriptions. Amara sighed, resting her chin on her hand. Official title: Big Sister, Part-time Nurse, and Detroit's Worst Soup Cook. Sounds impressive, he chuckled. If this were Hotline 1080, I'd have to charge extra for the multifunction package. You do sound like a call center rep, Amara teased. Like, hello valued customer, please hold for the next available agent. Exactly, but it'll cost you $2 a minute. Better have the cash ready or I'll cut you off. Oh, so you are a scammer. She laughed out loud this time, the bright sound echoing through the tiny apartment. From the bedroom, Lila peeked out in surprise. It had been a long time since her sister sounded this happy. The calls became a habit. At first, Amara told herself just a few words. Then hang up, but each time, the minutes stretched into an hour. Then 2, then 3. They traded fragments of their ordinary lives. Amara admitted she once dreamed of finishing a business degree and landing a decent job, but survival and caring for Lila had pulled her away. Ezra shared that he too had once been buried in endless spreadsheets and back-to-back meetings. So, what do you do exactly? Amara asked one rainy night, listening to the downpour against the windows. Office work? Ezra answered after a brief pause. All day, staring at numbers and paperwork, nothing glamorous. From the way you describe it, I picture some guy at a keyboard till 2 inches the morning. Cold coffee at his elbow, hair sticking up like a bird's nest. Dead on. He burst out laughing. You really are good at guessing. Amara laughed with him. In her mind's eye, He was more of a burnout office worker than any mysterious hero, and oddly enough, that made her feel comfortable. Not everyone needed to pretend to be perfect. Another night, after Lila had drifted into deep sleep, Amara sat huddled at the kitchen table, papers and overdue bills spread out before her. Ezra's voice came softly through the speakerphone. If you could do anything at all without worrying about money, what would it be? She stayed quiet for a long time, then sighed. I'd go back to school, finish my business degree. I'd want to work at a real company where my voice matters. But dreams are like old cars. When they break down, you just leave them on the roadside. Old cars can be fixed, Ezra said slowly. Dreams, too. You just need someone willing to listen to the engine sputter, replace the spark plugs, maybe add some fuel. The strange metaphor made Amara laugh through her tears, equal parts sad and warm. You should quit office work and start a therapy hotline. I'm already planning it. It'll be called Ezra 1080, basic package. I sit and listen to your complaints, premium package. I tell bad jokes until you laugh. I think I've already subscribed to the premium package, she murmured shyly, cheeks burning, though her heart felt lighter. Day by day, the calls became their invisible meeting place. Amara waited for the ringtone when Lila fell asleep. Ezra found comfort in her voice and escape from his silent high-rise apartment. They had never met, yet each joke, each shared sigh pulled the wide city of Detroit a little closer. Both knew this was no longer just a wrong call. It was a fragile but resilient thread. Two strangers connecting through nothing more than a voice, yet reaching into the deepest corners of each other's lives. Another rainy night in Detroit. Raindrops tapped steadily on the warped tin roof of the apartment, blending with the rough coughs coming from the next room. Amara sat on the sofa with her laptop on her lap, the screen filled with financial figures that had nothing to do with her, except they all glared red. Her fingers trembled as she clicked through the rising prices of medicine. In the bedroom, Lila's fever had eased for the moment, thanks to the very last fever reducer in the house. But Amara knew that by tomorrow, maybe even in just a few hours, it would spike again, and the medicine was too expensive. Her phone buzzed. Ezra, you're still awake? His voice came through low and rough, like he'd had a long day, too. Someone's got insomnia. She tried to make it sound like a joke, though her throat felt tight. Actually, I'm calculating Lila's medical costs. There was silence on the other end. Then Ezra's voice softened. Tell me. Amara bit her lip. Since meeting this stranger through a voice, she had already shared more than she'd ever expected, but money was still shameful to admit. Even so, his patient silence felt like a quiet nudge. Lila's meds. They're too expensive. Insurance won't cover them. I've tried everything, but... She exhaled, her voice breaking. I hate saying it out loud. Feels like I'm just whining. No. Ezra's reply was firm. You're not whining. You're fighting. There's a difference. The words made Amara's eyes sting. No one had called her efforts a fight in a very long time. The next day, Amara brought Lila to Hope Clinic, a modest neighborhood place that still charged high fees for uninsured patients. She braced herself to argue, beg, plead for a payment plan. But the doctor who met them was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and a gentle smile. Hello, you must be Lila. He bent down kindly. I was told about your case. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. Told? Amara blinked. But I didn't register for anything. We have a patient assistance fund, the doctor explained. Today's exam and the medication are all covered. Just focus on taking good care of Lila. Amara was stunned. By the time they left the clinic with a full bag of medicine, her legs felt weak beneath her. Everything had happened too quickly, too unexpectedly. Sis, who did this? Lila whispered, hugging the bag as if it were a treasure. Amara pressed her lips together. Inside her rose a warmth tangled with suspicion. Was this a gift from heaven or the voice on the other end of the line? That night, with Lila asleep, Amara sat by the window, listening to the rain, and dialed the familiar number. Hello. Ezra's voice answered on the very first ring. I don't know who to thank. But today Lila had a full checkup and got all her meds. They said it was covered by a patient support fund. Her voice wavered. Was it you? Ezra stayed silent for a long while. Amara could hear the tightness of his breath through the speaker. Amara, if you want to believe that was heaven, I won't argue. His tone was soft. As long as Lila's better, that's enough for me. Tears slid down Amara's cheeks. She wanted to question him, but she also wanted to believe in the miracle. In the end, she exhaled and let out a shaky laugh. Then, I guess heaven picked up the phone. If so, I should start charging for the Angel Hotline package. Ezra teased gently, and his faint laughter eased her heart. 2 days later, a delivery man knocked on their door. When Amara opened it, she found a small box wrapped in craft paper. No sender's name, just a note. For wrong number girl. Inside was a silver thermos, shiny and new. On its side was printed, wrong number, girl, handle with care. Amara burst out laughing, the sound filling the whole apartment. Lila came running from her room, eyes wide with delight. Who gave it to you? No idea, Amara replied. Cheeks flushed, but I'd say someone with way too much free time. She opened the lid. The sweet scent of freshly made cocoa still rose warm from inside. A small slip of paper was taped under the cap. Drink it while it's hot. Amara laughed until tears spilled from her eyes. For the first time in months, her heart felt lighter than air. That night, she called Ezra, her voice still glowing with laughter. Hey, Hotline 1080, did you just launch a new service? Thermos delivery to your doorstep. That's right. Premium package. A custom thermos filled with cocoa, $5 a minute call rate. Good Lord, the rates keep going up fast. She bit her lip to hide another giggle. I should call the cops on you for fraud. Go ahead. Just don't forget, send the thermos back. No way. Amara hugged the thermos tight, grinning. They both laughed, their voices mingling with the sound of rain outside the window, like a cheerful melody against the weight of life. Later that night, after Lila had fallen sound asleep, Amara sat alone on the sofa, the thermos beside her. She sipped a mouthful of cocoa, warmth spreading through her chest. The words wrong number girl glowed faintly under the lamplight. She didn't really know who Ezra was, how he lived, or what he did for a living. But in the middle of her exhausting days, his once foreign voice had become a steady comfort, and this silly little gift, however small, made her feel she wasn't alone in the fight anymore. Amara leaned her head against the cushion and whispered, maybe angels don't have wings. Maybe they just have warm voices and bad jokes. On the other side of the city, Ezra set his phone down on a glass table, gazing out at the storm. A smile tugged at his lips. The first time in a long while he'd felt something close to hope. A week later, Amara stood in front of Summit Tower. The morning sun reflecting off its soaring glass walls made her squint. This wasn't just an office building. To her, it looked like a skyscraper castle for the wealthy. God, what am I even doing here? She muttered, clutching the cheap flea market handbag in her grip, painfully aware of the glossy designer purses swinging past her. That morning, Lila had sent her off with a grin. Have fun at work, sis. And don't get lost in the rich people's maze. Then she burst out laughing. Amara had gritted her teeth. Only a real sister could be that merciless. She drew a long breath before pushing open the glass door. At the reception desk, a woman from HR named Clara smiled and handed her a crisp uniform. Here's your station. It's simple. Greet guests, answer calls, give directions. Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it quickly. Amara nodded, her heart pounding like a drum. This wasn't just a job. This was a chance. Her first real chance after months of unemployment and debt. Almost without thinking, she pulled out her phone and typed a quick message to her familiar stranger. Wish me luck on my new job. Wait, actually, I guess I'm wishing it to myself. She sent it and immediately blushed. Why was she sharing this with someone she'd never even met? The screen lit up a few seconds later. You'll do great. Trust me. Amara stared at the words, and suddenly half her anxiety melted away. Trust me. 3 simple words. Yet they felt like candy dissolving. Sweet and calming in the pit of her stomach. Her first day turned out to be a chaotic experience. A Japanese client who spoke no English handed her a crumpled map. A blonde woman screamed because the coffee machine on the 12th floor was broken, as if it were the receptionist's fault. Then a lost intern asked, "Where's room 1502? In a tower that only had 40 floors. By lunchtime, Amara was exhausted, slumped in her chair with a sigh. Instinctively, she texted Ezra. Turns out being a receptionist is basically like running an international airport. Only difference is I don't have a loudspeaker. The reply came instantly. If you had one, what would you say? Amara snorted, thumbs flying. Attention passengers. Blonde woman from the 12th floor. Please board your flight to planet Mars. And don't forget to bring your coffee. A laughing emoji pinged back. In the days that followed, the habit stuck. Morning greetings, lunchtime chaos updates, good night wishes. Amara began to see Ezra's texts as little doses of vitamins for her spirit. When she complained that a rude customer had nearly made her cry, he wrote, "Don't let anyone dim the glow of Summit Tower's rising star receptionist." When she snapped a secret photo of her cheap lunchbox, he answered, "Hey, your $2 sandwich looks way better than the $200 steak I once had at some fancy place." Amara laughed so hard she nearly got caught texting under the desk. One evening after her shift, she walked toward the bus stop. Detroit's skyline sparkled with lights, the wind damp with night air. Her phone buzzed. "Are you tired?" She leaned against a lamppost, smiling. "Tired, but happy. Feels like I'm finally stepping onto the first rung of the ladder." This time, Ezra called instead of texting. His deep voice carried a tenderness she wasn't used to. "I knew you'd do it. Honestly, hearing you talk about your first day makes me feel like I'm starting fresh too." Amara was silent, her heart trembling. A stranger, yet somehow making her feel not so alone. "You know," she laughed to cover the emotion, "your voice is starting to sound like one of those motivational coaches on the radio. Then tomorrow I'll have to charge extra. $3 a minute premium spirit coach package." "Oh my God. You've got more subscription plans than a phone company." Amara shook her head, laughing. Those conversations gradually evolved into more than just banter or venting. Each message carried a touch of gentle care, a bit of shy warmth, fragments of feelings unnamed. One night, while Lila sketched away in her room, Amara held her wrong number girl thermos on the balcony and texted Ezra. "Do you ever think one wrong call could turn into a habit like this?" He answered after a pause. "One number. But if I could, I'd want it to be a habit for life." Amara froze, staring at the screen. Misty drizzle fell, and the streetlights blurred. Her heart skipped a beat. She typed with trembling fingers, "Hey, are you flirting?" "Who knows?" The reply came with a winking emoji. Amara burst out laughing, pressing the warm thermos against her flushed cheek. On its side, the words "wrong number girl" gleamed softly under the balcony light. That night, even after the lights were off and Lila was asleep, Amara lay restless. Ezra's last message still glowed in her mind. "I'd want it to be a habit for life." She smiled in the dark. A faceless stranger existing only through a voice and a string of texts had somehow become her strongest support in this hard chapter of her life. Just before sleep claimed her, she whispered, "Maybe one wrong call, but right for a lifetime." A chilly Detroit morning. Summit Tower loomed like a steel needle piercing through the gray clouds. Amara stepped into the vast glass lobby, wobbling slightly in the borrowed high heels from her neighbor. She felt like she was walking a tightrope. That morning, Clara had called, "Board meeting today. Lots of important guests. Be ready to welcome them." Amara had nearly dropped her staff badge in panic. "Okay, keep your cool. You're the receptionist. The receptionist goddess," she whispered to herself, pumping courage into her chest. At exactly 9 a.m., the grand elevator doors slid open. A group of people walked out, their suits sharp and shoes polished. In the middle of them was a tall man with broad shoulders and neatly styled dark hair. His stride was calm, but his piercing gaze silenced the entire lobby. Amara lowered her head in a polite bow and turned to walk back to her desk. When that voice, "Lee's file will be postponed until next week, and I want the morning report by 5 p.m." Amara's heart jolted violently. That voice, too familiar, too close. She lifted her eyes. The man stopped, turned, and their gazes locked. 1 second, 2, 3. The world froze. Her mouth fell open. It was him, Ezra, the man who had spoken to her night after night, the one who had sent her the wrong number girl thermos, except the name badge clipped to his suit pocket read clearly, "Ezra Cole, CEO." Amara stumbled back, her chest aching. So, it had all been a lie. She thought she had been confiding in some ordinary office guy, but in truth, it was the CEO of the tower itself, a man who could buy the world without blinking. "Amara?" Ezra's voice cracked. His expression was one of stunned surprise. It's you." Her voice trembled. "You're Ezra Cole. CEO Ezra Cole." His assistant raised a brow, looking between them. The air in the lobby tightened like a drawn bowstring. Amara shook her head, a mix of anger and humiliation. "So all this time you hid from me. You listened to me talk about debts, medicine, my tears. While you sat up there on the top floor of this tower, with an empire in your hands. It wasn't like that." Ezra took a step forward, but she recoiled. "Then what? Some pastime?" Chatting with a desperate girl who dialed the wrong number to kill your boredom? Amara forced a bitter laugh. Though her lips shook, Ezra's eyes stung. He opened his mouth. But in her anger, Amara blurted, "Guess I was stupid enough to trust Mr. Wrong Number." The entire lobby went dead silent. Then dozens of eyes swung to her. Ezra's assistant froze, then bent over his iPad, shoulders shaking as he tried not to laugh, nearly choking. Ezra's face paled, though the corner of his mouth twitched like he couldn't decide whether to laugh or rush after her. "Amara, please just hear me out." His voice was desperate, but Amara's face was burning red with shame. "God, the entire building will probably call me Miss Wrong Number Receptionist from now on." Without thinking, she darted behind the desk and fumbled for her bag. I need air." Ezra started forward, but she bolted, darting through the revolving glass doors like a squirrel escaping a trap. The borrowed heels clattered against the marble floor, nearly tripping her, but she didn't dare look back. Behind her, Ezra stood frozen, his heart in chaos. He, who could command hundreds of employees and sign billion-dollar contracts without hesitation, was now rooted in place like a fool left behind. His assistant spoke carefully. "Sir, Mr. Wrong Number." Ezra pressed a hand to his forehead and let out a pained laugh. "Shut up, or I'll officially change your title to Mr. Nosy." Amara burst into the street. The cold wind lashed her face, tears streaming until she couldn't tell where the rain ended, and her humiliation began. She felt utterly foolish, pouring her heart out to a man who had hidden his identity all along. A stranger threw a voice. No, he was a financial tycoon, and she was nothing more than a passing amusement. She clutched the Wrong Number girl thermos in her bag, suddenly heavy as stone. Inside the tower, Ezra stood at the window, eyes locked on her small figure, disappearing into the rush of the city crowd. And for the first time he felt something he had never felt in the boardroom, that a contract could wait. But one woman could not. He whispered to himself a vow more than words. "Amara, I'll make you understand. I've never, not for 1 second, been playing with you." Amara had never switched her phone off so many times in one day. From morning until night, the screen lit up again and again with Ezra's name, but she stubbornly refused to answer. Her heart pounded every time, yet her mind screamed, "No, he fooled you. Amara Torres. Don't be so easy." By the third day, when her work inbox pinged with a new email, she nearly spilled her coffee all over the keyboard. From Ezra Cole. Subject: regarding guest reception procedures and a few other things. Amara swallowed hard, her pulse racing. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly. "Amara, first of all, thank you for handling last week's guest reception so well. Several partners gave very positive feedback about your friendliness intact. Also, I'd like to remind you to remember to eat lunch on time. Skipping meals could affect your work performance. This is purely professional HR advice. No personal meaning attached. Actually, that's a lie. It is personal. Sincerely, Ezra Cole." Amara burst into giggles, then immediately frowned. "God, what kind of CEO writes an email that sounds like a clumsy love note?" she muttered. Though her cheeks flushed hot, that evening, Lila rested her chin in her hands, watching her sister laugh alone at the screen. "Hey, are you mad at your not-yet-official boyfriend?" Amara choked. "Don't talk nonsense. He's a CEO, and I'm just a lowly receptionist." "So what?" Lila shrugged. "He still cares about you. I can see it plain as day. You're both mad and missing him. You shut off your phone and sulk, but one email makes you smile. You think I'm blind?" Amara threw a pillow at her. Lila burst into laughter, rolling on the couch, but when the bedroom door closed, Amara sat in silence, fingertips brushing over the words, "Remember to eat lunch." Her heart softened, angry as she was. She missed him all the same. Meanwhile, across Detroit, a sleek black-town car rolled over cobblestone streets. Felix held the wheel steady. In the back seat, Ezra sat quietly, eyes locked on the screen filled with unanswered calls. Felix cleared his throat. Still no answer. "Mr. Cole." Ezra leaned back, exhaling. "Do you know the worst part, Felix? I can negotiate with the toughest sharks on Wall Street, but I can't convince one woman that I mean what I say." Felix smiled faintly, keeping his eyes on the road. "Actually, that's the beauty of it. You're accustomed to people being drawn to your money and power first. But this girl, all she saw was a voice." Ezra fell silent, then nodded slowly. "Exactly. With her, I wasn't a CEO. I was just Mr. Blancapelodo. Wrong number. and I've never felt more myself. Felix chuckled softly. If you want, I could happen to pick her up on another rainy night. Ezra let out a helpless laugh. No, let her choose. I want Amara to believe that no matter who I am, what I feel for her is real. In the rearview mirror, Felix caught a rare sight. His boss, smiling faintly, yet with worry clouding the eyes of the most powerful man in the city. That night, Amara tossed and turned in bed. Her phone lay right beside her pillow. Its screen black and silent. She was angry but restless. Lila's words from earlier kept circling in her mind. "You're not yet official boyfriend," she whispered into the darkness. "Mr. Wrong number. You've messed me up completely." Across the city, Ezra sat alone in his cold penthouse, yellow lamplight stretching his shadow across the wall. He opened his laptop, cursor blinking on a blank email. Slowly, he typed, "Amara, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I only hope you believe that everything I said, every call, every laugh was real. If you can give me a chance to explain, not as a CEO, but as a man who fell in love with your voice." He sat for a long time, staring at the words. In the end, he didn't send it. Instead, he typed one short message, "Good night, wrong number, girl." On the other side, Amara saw the text. Her heart raced. She pouted, half annoyed, yet unable to stop herself from smiling. Detroit's afternoon shimmered with sunlight, but Amara's stomach twisted in knots. In her hands lay a thick invitation card embossed with gold letters. Charity, Gala Summit Foundation. Sender. Ezra Cool. She had hesitated for 3 days. If she went, she risked becoming a laughingstock. If she didn't, well, she felt an ache of disappointment. In the end, Lila had delivered the verdict. "Sis." He sent the invitation personally. "Not going would be a total waste of the dress I dug up at the thrift donation pile last week." Amara groaned, staring at the navy blue dress hanging nearby. It was simple, a little too long at the hem, but intact. She sighed. "Fine, but remember, if I get embarrassed so badly I want to crawl into the floor, it's all your fault." That evening, the lobby of the Grand Horizon Hotel looked straight out of a Hollywood film. Dazzling crystal chandeliers, a live jazz band, gowns glittering like starlight, and the tinkling laughter of the city's elite. Amara walked in, her heart pounding. Everyone around her sparkled like diamonds while she felt like a grain of sand. She slipped toward a corner, clutching her worn-out clutch purse, when a voice rang out, "You came." Ezra stood there in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, bow tie crisp, eyes lighting up as they fell on her. For a moment, the noise around them seemed to fade. "You really wanted me here?" Amara whispered, trying to mask her nerves. "Who else would I bring to this gala?" The teasing remark made her laugh, easing the tension slightly, and as fate would have it, when she reached for a glass of wine from a passing tray, her hand trembled, one light bump from behind. Splash! Crimson wine spilled straight onto the pristine white gown of a blonde society matron standing nearby. The room froze. The woman, someone had just whispered her name, Mrs. Wael Leba. Langley stared at her, as though she had committed treason. "You? What have you done?" Amara turned tomato red, stammering, I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the dry cleaning." Before Mrs. Langley could unleash her fury, Ezra stepped in, laying a calm hand on Amara's shoulder. His voice carried easily across the room. "This is the latest design from Milan, the Red Splash Edition. Surprised you haven't heard of it yet?" A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. "Mrs." Langley's face turned scarlet, but she could hardly argue in public. Muttering under her breath, she stormed off in humiliation. Amara stared at Ezra wide-eyed. "You just saved me?" "Saved you?" He shrugged. "I just made you a fashion icon. By tomorrow, half the city will be splashing wine on dresses to stay in style." Amara burst out laughing, nearly choking on her drink. But even as Ezra turned the disaster into comedy, Amara could still hear the whispers behind her. "Who is she? That dress alone screams out of her league. I heard she's just a receptionist at Summit Tower." The eyes of scrutiny burned into her back. She wanted to crawl under a table, and then, slicing through the chatter, came a voice she instantly recognized. Sharp as a blade. "Well, isn't this interesting, Ezra? You bring a receptionist to a charity gala." Amara turned. A tall woman with shining blonde hair stood in a fiery red gown. The room fell silent around her. Sophia, Ezra's ex-wife. Her smile was razored, her gaze sweeping over Amara like she was a bargain bin product. Your taste really has changed." Ezra held his ground, voice steady. "Sophia, this is Amara. She's someone very important to me." The short introduction rippled through the crowd like a shock wave. Amara's throat closed. She wanted to protest. "I'm just an employee," but no words came out. Sophia arched a brow, her smile sly, then turned sharply, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume. After the encounter, Amara slipped out to the balcony to breathe. The night air was cool, Detroit glittering below like a sea of lights. Yet, her chest felt heavy. "I don't belong here. These glittering gowns, those sneering looks, even Sophia. I'm nothing but an outsider." Ezra followed her, setting his glass down on the railing. "Are you all right?" "Fine." She forced a smile. "As fine as Mrs. Langley's white dress." Ezra chuckled softly, though his gaze was gentle. "I know this isn't easy for you, but you don't have to try to be like them. Just be yourself." "But I don't fit this world. I'm just wrong number girl." "Ezra." He was quiet for a moment, then leaned closer, his voice firm. "And you're the only person in that room I wanted by my side." Her heart skipped a beat, the words echoing deep inside her. Yet, even as her pulse raced, the muffled laughter and buzzing music from inside pressed against her. The dissonance left her torn in two. When the gala ended, Ezra offered her a ride home in his town car. But Amara insisted on taking a taxi. On the ride back, she sat silently, navy dress rumpled in the dark, her mind replaying his words. "You're the only one." And still, Sophia's mocking laughter and those cutting stares clung to her like shadows. Leaning her head against the cool glass of the taxi window, she whispered, "I'm stepping into a game too big, and I'm not sure I'm ready." Meanwhile, from the high balcony of the hotel, Ezra watched the glow of her taxi vanish into the distance. His grip tightened around the stem of his glass, his eyes burning with resolve. "If you believe you don't belong in this world, then I'll make this world belong to you." Detroit lit up for the night, streets buzzing beneath the glow of amber lights. Amara walked quickly along the sidewalk, her heart still unsettled after the charity gala. On her phone, one unread message from Ezra remained. "I know I owe you an explanation. Give me a chance to tell the truth. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Antonio's Italian on Pine Street. If you don't come, I'll sit there until they close." She had meant to ignore it, but all day at work, every time her eyes fell on the wrong number girl thermos on her desk, her heart softened, which was why now she found herself standing in front of Antonio's, a small Italian eatery tucked between two worn-down buildings. Its neon sign flickered while the aroma of pizza and tomato sauce floated into the evening air. Amara pushed the door open. No chandeliers, no glittering gowns, just wooden tables, red and white checkered cloth, and the smell of warm garlic bread. In the corner, Ezra was already waiting. Gone was the flawless tuxedo. He wore a rolled-up dark blue shirt, tie tucked into his pocket. A very different Ezra, simpler, even human. He jumped to his feet when he saw her, his smile tinged with a hint of awkwardness. "You came. I'm only here to hear your explanation." Amara folded her arms, keeping her guard up. "And I'll tell you everything," Ezra said, signaling the waiter. "But first, let's order a pizza. If we're going to share secrets, we might as well have cheese and wine as witnesses." The line was playful enough to tug the corner of her lips upward, though she quickly forced herself serious again. With red wine glinting in candlelight, Ezra took a deep breath and began, "You know, people look at me and see a CEO, someone who has more than he'll ever need. However, the truth is that I started with nothing. My father left when I was 8 years old. My mother worked as a maid, cleaning houses so I could go to school." Amara sat silently, eyes wide. "I worked dishwashing jobs, parking cars, and delivering newspapers. Sometimes I had only enough in my pocket for a dry piece of bread. My mother always told me, just hold on to your kindness. Everything else will find its way." He paused, his gaze lowering. "She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I had the money for the best hospitals, but I couldn't save her." Amara's throat tightened. She saw herself reflected in his story, an older sister fighting to keep her sibling alive with medicine. Softly, she said, "I understand. My parents died in an accident 3 years ago. Since then, I've had to work, study, and raise Lila on my own. Maybe we both know what it's like to lose the only anchor we had." Their eyes met, sorrow and recognition mingling in the quiet space between them. Ezra sipped his wine, then continued, "When the company took off, I thought I had everything. I married Sophia, but that was the biggest mistake of my life. She loved the image of the successful CEO, the galas, the magazine covers. But she never cared to know who I really was. His hand tightened on the glass. When my mother was sick, I spent most of my time at the hospital. Sofia felt abandoned. She filed for divorce. The press painted me as a man incapable of love. But the truth is, I had never loved the right person. Amara lowered her gaze. His words didn't sound like excuses from a rich man. They were raw, even clumsy. The cold CEO from the magazines now seemed more like a man confessing failures to a simple girl across the table. She let out a small laugh, half bitter, half warm. Funny. I thought you were just some rich man toying with my misery for fun. Turns out you've struggled, lost, and been lonely, too. Ezra nodded, his eyes earnest. Yes, and from the night you dialed the wrong number, you broke that emptiness. You didn't see CEO Cole. You just heard a voice. And I couldn't bear to lose that. The air between them softened. The waiter arrived with a steaming pizza. Cheese bubbling golden. Amara picked up her fork, but Ezra grinned. Fork and knife for pizza? Come on, this is a family Italian joint. Wrong number, girl. She laughed, tearing a slice with her hands. For the first time in weeks, she felt at ease, like she was sharing dinner with a friend, not a powerful executive. The pizza slowly disappeared as they swapped stories, favorite books, awkward childhood memories. Amara confessed she once sold cookies for a school fundraiser but ate half of them herself. Ezra nearly doubled over laughing, admitting that at 16, he forged his mom's signature just to get a part-time job. At last, only one slice remained, small and gooey with cheese. Both reached for it at once. That's mine, Amara cried. Nope, mine. Chio privilege. The last slice, Ezra teased. Greedy CEO, she laughed, tugging it toward her. He held firm, pulling back, their eyes locked, grins tugging at their lips. And then, neither knew quite when it happened, but the pizza was forgotten. The space between them closed. Their lips brushed lightly, then deepened into a kiss. The faint taste of tomato and cheese, awkward yet warm. Amara pulled back, cheeks flaming. Did we just kiss over a slice of pizza? Ezra chuckled low, eyes bright. Then thank the pizza. It's smarter than I am. They both burst out laughing, their laughter mingling with the scratchy Italian music playing from the old radio in the corner. When they left Antonio's, Detroit's streetlights cast golden halos on the rain-slick sidewalks. Ezra walked her to a taxi, holding the door open, his gaze lingering. I won't promise to be perfect, but I promise everything you saw tonight, my childhood, my mistakes, my grief, that's the real me. Amara stayed quiet, but as the taxi pulled away, she glanced back, whispering, Thank you for being honest. Ezra stood watching until the car vanished, hope swelling in his chest. That night, Amara lay in bed, clutching the wrong number girl thermos, her heart racing. She knew things wouldn't be simple, that Sophia in the high society world still waited to judge her. But that clumsy kiss over a slice of pizza had carved its mark. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for something different. And Ezra, alone in his vast penthouse, smiled quietly to himself. To him, that kiss was not just a fleeting emotion, it was a silent vow. From one wrong call, they could write an entire right story. Monday morning, the moment Amara stepped into Summit Tower, she sensed something was wrong. Co-workers were huddled over their phones, whispering, glancing at her with a mix of curiosity and pity. Clara, the HR manager, hurried over, her face tight. Amara, don't pay attention. The tabloids are at it again with their trashy headlines. Amara's heart pounded. She snatched a newspaper off the reception desk. Bold letters screamed across the cover. CEO Ezra Cole's new girlfriend is just a receptionist who dialed the wrong number. Gold digger or fairy tale romance. Beneath it was a grainy photo. She and Ezra walking out of Antonio's Italian restaurant last week, smiling like fools. The article added fuel. Sources claim this poor girl is exploiting the CEO's pity to climb into a new life. Heat flared across Amara's face. Her hands shook as she crumpled the paper. Every word cut at her pride like a knife. That afternoon, she sat curled up in her tiny apartment, hugging a pillow, staring out the rain-smeared window. The article had already spread online. Old acquaintances texted her, half curious, half judgmental. They're right. I don't belong in that world. I'm just entertainment. She shot up suddenly, grabbed a small suitcase, and started stuffing clothes inside. The thought flared. Quit the job. Quit Ezra. Quit everything. Then came pounding at her door. Amara, open the door. Her chest clenched Ezra's voice. Go away, she shouted. I don't want to see you anymore. If you don't open this door, I'll call a locksmith." His tone was part frustration, part panic. "Do you think a CEO won't actually do it?" The door flew open. Ezra stood there, breathless, hair damp from the rain, a crumpled newspaper in his hand. "Did you read it?" He held the paper up. "I did. And they're right." Amara snapped, eyes brimming. "I'm just the wrong number, girl. And you're the rich CEO. Everyone thinks I'm using you." Ezra strode closer, gripping her shoulders. "Listen, if you're digging for gold, then this gold mine is giving itself up to you willingly. Got it?" Amara froze, then burst out, laughing through her tears. "Do you have any idea how stupid that sounds?" "Stupid, maybe, but honest." His eyes locked with hers. "You're not taking anything from me. I'm the one who needs you." She turned away, voice breaking. "But I'm exhausted. Exhausted from the stares, the gossip, from even Sophia." At that name, Ezra's jaw tightened. Sophia means nothing. She's only bitter because, for the first time, I'm in love with someone real. Amara stayed silent, her heart still torn. Just then, the bedroom door creaked open. Lila poked her head out, hair messy, ink smudges on her cheek. "Can you two stop with the 8 p.m. soap opera? I can't study." Amara flushed crimson. Ezra cleared his throat, stepping back a pace. Lila crossed her arms, glaring at her sister. "Have you forgotten who was there the night your car broke down at the gas station? Who called you an Uber? Who worried about my medicine? Did the tabloids bring you soup when you were sick?" Amara lowered her head. The walls around her stubborn heart started to crumble. Lila turned to Ezra. "And you, if you truly care for my sister, be patient. Don't let her run just because of some trashy articles." Ezra smiled softly, inclining his head in a gesture of gratitude. The room fell into silence. At last, Amara let the suitcase drop from her hand. Her voice wavered. I don't know if I can handle this pressure." Ezra stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "Then let me handle it with you. Alone, it's exhausting. But two people together, it's different. Trust me." His eyes shone with determination. Nothing like the cold CEO on magazine covers. This was the man who had once stayed on the line for hours just to hear her sigh. Amara let out a shaky laugh, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Mr. Wrong Number, you make me suffer too much." Ezra bent down, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Then let me make you suffer a little more. But only the suffering that comes with love. Deal?" She laughed through her tears, feeling lighter than she had in days. From the bedroom, Lila shouted, "Just say yes already so I can sleep." Both burst out laughing, the tension melting into warmth. That night, as she walked Ezra to the door, Amara whispered, "I'm still angry, but I'll try trusting you one more time." Ezra squeezed her hand, eyes glowing. "One more time is all I need. I'll make it forever." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening with scattered lights like tiny fragments of hope rekindled in both their hearts. The rain poured down on Detroit, as if trying to wash away the city's troubles. Streets shimmered like rivers of glass, and yellow streetlights stretched into long, blurry streaks on the wet pavement. On a familiar corner stood Amara and Lila's worn-down apartment, its tin roof rattling under the pounding drops. Ezra stood under the tiny awning, his black umbrella long since flipped inside out by the wind. His shirt clung to his shoulders, soaked through, tie hanging crooked. There was nothing of the polished CEO about him now, only a man with one thought in his mind. "Amara." He knocked on the door. "Amara, it's me." Inside, Amara was lifting a pot of soup off the stove for Lila when her heart clenched at the sound of his voice. She hesitated, torn, but in the end, she opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she asked, arms crossed, leaning against the frame, voice laced with faint coldness. Rain dripped from Ezra's brow as he caught his breath. "To say everything I didn't get to say. If you still want me gone after that, I'll go." Amara frowned, then turned her back. "Come in. Standing in the rain like that is stupid." They sat in the small living room, yellow lamplight pulling over the old sofa. Lila's soft cough from the other room only made the silence heavier. Ezra drew a long breath, eyes bright despite his weariness. "Amara, I know you feel like you don't belong in my world, but listen to me. I don't love you for who you are in anyone else's eyes or for your circumstances. I love you for the way you care for Lila, for the way you smile even when exhausted, even for the way you call me Mr. Wrong Number." Amara bit her lip. "But you're a CEO. And me? I'm just a girl who misdialed a number. The tabloids were right. We're too different." Ezra shook his head, his voice rough. "I don't need someone suitable by their standards. I need someone who truly sees me. And you did from the very first night. You didn't care if I was rich or poor. You just listened, shared, and laughed. I can't lose that over headlines." She sat still, her heart softening. The truth in his eyes left no room for doubt. It wasn't just words. Tears slid down Amara's cheeks. "Do you know how afraid I've been? Afraid of being a joke. Afraid you'd tire of me, and I'd be left with only humiliation." Ezra reached gently for her trembling hands. "I can't promise to silence the world, but I promise to shield you every day, every hour, not out of guilt, but out of love. Because I love you." Amara Torres. Her heart cracked wide open. She looked up, eyes wet. "Did you just say you love me?" "Yes." Ezra smiled, voice trembling as if fearing rejection. "Not CEO Ezra Cole. Just a man so lonely he clung to a wrong number. And that man loved you from the very first moment he heard you laugh through your tears." From the bedroom, Lila coughed deliberately, then called out, "Are you two going to keep acting out a soap opera in the living room all night? Take it outside. Some of us are trying to sleep." Amara laughed through her tears. Ezra's gaze held hers, intent, unshakable. Together, as if pulled by an invisible thread, they rose and stepped out under the awning. The rain still fell hard. Amara tilted her face upward, letting the cool drops wash over her. Ezra pulled her close, arms tightening around her. "I'm sorry I made you doubt me. But from now on, if you let me, I'll prove every day that you're the only one I need." Amara wrapped her arms around him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm still scared, but I trust you, Mr. Peng." "Wrong number." They laughed at the same time, their voices mingling with the rain, washing away days of tension. In that tender moment, Ezra suddenly sneezed loudly. Then again, achoo. "Ow." Amara jumped back in alarm. "Oh my God. You just pulled off the most romantic confession, and now you look like a drenched, sneezing cat." Ezra wiped his face, laughing between sneezes. "If I get sick, it's your fault. Your fault for making me fall in love with a flu-ridden CEO." Amara doubled over with laughter, tears mixing with rain. She brushed his wet hair back gently. "Fine, I'll take responsibility. But if you've got a runny nose tomorrow, don't expect me to buy tissues for you." Ezra grinned, eyes shining bright enough to cut through the storm. He leaned down, nothing holding him back this time. Their lips met in the Detroit rain, sweet, clumsy, perfect. When they finally came back inside, drenched from head to toe, Lila sat up with a dramatic sigh. "Well, that's settled. You're officially together. I'm the witness." Amara blushed furiously. Ezra chuckled, gripping her hand firmly. Outside, the rain still fell, but inside that small apartment, something new had begun. A love born of a wrong number, of tears, laughter, and even a few unstoppable sneezes. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Detroit's skies still swung between rain and sunshine, but for Amara, each day now carried a piece she once thought she would never have. From the nervous receptionist she once was, Amara had grown into a project management assistant at Summit Tower. She knew almost every client by name, mastered procedures, and could even hold her own in meetings. Clara, once her manager, now a close friend and mentor, often teased, "I knew that smile of yours would take you places. It even beat CEO Cole's, you know." Amara only laughed, but inside she brimmed with pride. Her success wasn't handed to her as the CEO's girlfriend. It came from her own persistence and effort day after day. Meanwhile, Lila was healthier than ever. The endless coughs were gone, replaced by bright eyes and the shining grin she wore as she waved an acceptance letter. A summer art scholarship at a prestigious school. She dashed around the house, proudly showing off every sketch, every photograph. "Look, sis, if my first exhibition is a hit, you and Ezra have to come with a giant bouquet. Promise?" Amara hugged her little sister tightly, overcome with emotion. It had been so long since they could laugh so freely. The home Amara and Ezra now shared was neither a glittering penthouse nor the cramped old apartment, but a warm suburban house. In the backyard, Lila tended pots of tomatoes. In the living room, vanilla-scented candles flickered softly. Evenings often rang with playful arguments. "It's definitely your turn to do the dishes." Amara planted her hands on her hips, holding up an apron like a flag. "No way. I remember clearly you lost the bet yesterday," Ezra countered, his CEO tone sounding more like a sulking schoolboy. CEOs have to play fair, too. Or do you want me to report you to Felix and let him referee?" Just then, Felix walked in carrying a bag of bread. The old driver shook his head, chuckling. "You two argue like grade schoolers. Hand it over. I'll wash the dishes." "No," Amara and Ezra shouted in unison. In the end, Ezra was the one roped into wearing rubber gloves at the sink, scrubbing away while Amara stood watching. Arms folded, grinning in triumph. "See, even the mighty CEO loses in the end." Felix sipped tea, leaning toward Lila to whisper. "Never thought I'd end up as the uncle in the house, but honestly, listening to these two argue over dirty dishes beats driving any day." Lila and Amara burst into laughter. Ezra pretended to sulk, though a smile tugged at the corners of his lips. Life together wasn't just about kitchen squabbles. Some mornings, Ezra rushed to prep documents, and Amara handed him a hot coffee in his battered thermos, the one still etched with "wrong number girl." Its paint peeling, he held it like a treasure, smiling. "That wrong call gave me a family." On quiet nights, they sat together on the porch, listening to the rain while Lila shared her dreams of becoming an artist. Ezra usually said little, only squeezing Amara's hand gently as if to remind her he wasn't going anywhere. One autumn evening, while the three of them lounged in the living room with pizza boxes scattered around, Lila suddenly asked, "So, when are you two getting married?" Amara nearly choked on her slice. "Lila, what kind of question is that?" Ezra raised an eyebrow, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. "Good question. Exactly." Felix chimed in, feigning seriousness. "As your uncle, I need to know so I can get my suit ready." Amara's face went scarlet as she buried it in a sofa cushion. "Why is everyone in this house teaming up on me?" Ezra tugged her hand gently, his voice equal parts sincere and teasing. "I think we should start planning. Nothing extravagant, just something warm. Something that tells you and Lila you'll always belong here." Hege softened. She didn't answer with words, only a small nod. But the radiant smile that broke across Ezra's face said it all. A year after that wrong number call, Amara had a steady career. Lila thrived with her art scholarship, and Ezra, once a lonely CEO, had found a peaceful home. In that little house, laughter filled every meal. Playful arguments over dishes echoed in the kitchen, and quiet promises of an upcoming wedding hung in the air. And it had all begun with one wrong call on a rainy night in Detroit. That summer, Detroit wore a brilliant green in the small garden of the suburban home Amara, Ezra, and Lila had built together over the past year. White roses bloomed on a gentle golden light. String lights twinkled overhead, and wooden tables and chairs lined up neatly. It wasn't a grand wedding with hundreds of guests, but a warm, intimate celebration, exactly what Amara had always dreamed of. Only the people who truly loved them were present. Felix, for once out of his chauffeur's suit, looked rather dashing as the day's reluctant officiant. Adjusting the microphone with a grin, he muttered, "Boss Cole, today you don't get to order meetings at 10 or reports in 5. Today belongs to Amara." Ezra chuckled, nodding, his gaze already fixed at the end of the flower-strewn aisle where Amara waited. Piano music floated across the garden as the guests rose to their feet. Amara appeared in a simple white gown, unpretentious yet radiant. Beside her, Lila glowed as a bridesmaid in a pastel blue dress, eyes sparkling with joy. Ezra held his breath, his heart raced just like the first time he had heard Amara's voice on that rainy night. As the couple walked down the aisle, a few Summit Tower employees whispered to each other, barely stifling their laughter. "This is definitely the boss's most successful deal. Yeah, he dialed the wrong number and closed the contract of a lifetime." The group erupted in giggles. Ezra shot them a mock warning glare, but even he couldn't hide his smile. Amara overheard, cheeks burning, but she laughed, too. As the ceremony drew to a close, Lila stepped forward and took the microphone. The crowd fell silent, watching the 7-year-old with expectant eyes. "Hi, everyone. I'm Lila, the bride's sister. I just have a few words today." She cleared her throat, drawing laughter from the crowd. "If it weren't for that wrong number, my sister would probably still be single, eating instant noodles in our tiny apartment. Oh, and yelling at me for spilling paint on the floor." The garden was filled with laughter. Lila continued, her voice softening. "But because of that wrong number, we have Ezra, not just a brother-in-law, but the man who helped my sister believe in love again. Thank you for loving her, and loving me, too. I hope that call will always be the most beautiful mistake of your lives." Tears brimmed in Amara's eyes as she hugged her sister tight. Ezra rested a tender hand on Lila's shoulder. When it came time for vows, a warm summer breeze whispered through the roses. Ezra held Amara's hands, his voice deep, trembling slightly. "A year ago, you were just a stranger's voice in the rain. But that voice pulled me out of loneliness, gave me a family, and made me believe I was still worthy of love. I vow to stand by you, not only in sunshine, but through every Detroit storm." Amara looked into his eyes, her lips quivering. "I once thought a wrong number meant nothing, but it turned out to be the most important call of my life. You don't love me for my past or my circumstances. You love me for who I am, and I vow to always pick up when you call, whether through tears or laughter." For a moment, the garden held its breath, then erupted into applause. Felix deliberately raised his voice. "And now, Ezra, you may kiss the bride. But this time no spilling wine on anyone's dress." The guests burst into laughter. Amara flushed, bright red. Ezra laughed, then leaned down to kiss her beneath the canopy of white roses. After the vows, guests mingled, feasting and chatting amid cheerful music. Lila tugged the photographer's sleeve. "Quick, take our family photo." Ezra wrapped his arm around Amara's waist, and Amara pulled Lila close. The three leaned together, smiling widely. Golden light filtered through the trees, their shadows falling across the green grass. From a wrong number on a rainy night to a family, the photo was framed and placed in their suburban living room as proof of a love born from the sweetest mistake. When night fell and guests departed, Amara sat in the garden, her gown pooling softly under the warm glow of string lights. Ezra laid a hand on her shoulder, Lila beside them, nibbling the last cupcake. "So, it's done." Amara smiled. "No," Ezra replied gently. "This is only the beginning, the start of a lifelong contract I sign willingly, no signature required. But your smile," Amara laughed. Lila rolled her eyes with a grin. "You two are way too romantic. But I like it." They all laughed together. Above them, the Detroit sky glittered with stars, clear after the rain, and in that laughter, a new family was written into being. Born of a wrong number, sealed as a love for life.